All right, everybody, welcome back to another Corona Geek live on-air hangout here on Google+, the place where we talk all about mobile development using the Corona SDK. Today I'm joined in the studio again by Dr. Brian Burton. Say hello, Brian.
Hello. How are you all?
Doing great. Hey,
My southern accent. Yeah, my southern accent's coming through there.
Exactly.
Y'all.
Hitting us hard and fast with it. We've also got Toff Ward. Say hello, Toff.
How you doing?
And today's special guest is J-A-Y. I'm saying that correctly, aren't I?
Yeah, it actually spells my first name. So, yeah, so you know what? And when that's my pseudonym, and it's one of the worst kept secrets in the world. One of the webinars that Carlos did back when he was with Corona Labs or ANSCA. He referred to me off and on as with my real name and my fake name back and forth. So it's a secret, but not a real secret, and there's a boring story behind it. But you can just call me Jay.
Okay, cool.
Got it.
Awesome. Well, for everybody who doesn't know, Jay is the Corona. He's the creator of the Corona Project Manager, which is basically an IDE for developing Corona projects. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and we're also going to, Jay, I want to ask you questions about some of your other endeavors that you've got going on, because I'm kind of interested on that side of the house too. So we'll get to all that in just a little bit. But thanks for joining us here on the show today. It's great to have you on here. Now, Chris, if you will, take us through the agenda for today's show and give us a kind of highlights of what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, we've got some announcements with the T-shirts, iTunes, Stitcher, and Chrome. A little bit about the build notes. We've got a really cool highlight that we didn't talk about last time because it kind of happened like on Tuesday. So I definitely want to get into that. It's about funding. Then we've got our developer spotlight, which is Jay. And he's got a really neat tool that we're going to talk about a little bit. And then we've got some community questions. We've got an app review of lemon.com, which I don't know, it's kind of neat. And we've got device news, which I thought was rather interesting about OpenFaint. Then we've got an API spotlight, kind of a follow-up with Brian and his data tutorial. And then we're going to mention who the next guest is on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start out with announcements. Normally we go with the latest build notes and talk about those, but we've got a lot of announcements. So let's go ahead and just get those out of the way. The first one here is basically, we talked last time about doing a T-shirt contest, and now we're I'm going to say official, because we actually have a giveaway form that you can fill out to potentially enter to win a T-shirt from Corona Labs. Corona Labs has, graciously offered to sponsor us by giving away T-shirts and things like that on the show. So we're going to help them out with that by sending you off to the coronageek.com/giveaway page, where we're going to ask you to follow us on a particular social network of your choice, whether that be Twitter or Facebook or even YouTube. If you want to follow us there, that's great. And then go to coronageek.com/giveaway, fill out the form, and enter for a chance to win a Corona Labs T-shirt. So yeah, let me pull that up on the screen there. You've got Chris has got the screen up right now. So again, if you can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/coronageek, facebook.com/coronageek, youtube.com/coronageek. We're all over the place, and of course we're here on Google Plus all the time as well. So just follow us on one of those social networks, go to this coronageek.com/giveaway and fill out the thing there. Essentially, we're just asking a few simple questions, and then we're going to need your mailing information and things like that, just so that we can send you the T-shirt if you win. And that's it. It's really that simple. So that's very exciting. I'm really excited about that. I'm looking forward to that. I like the Corona T-shirts. I've got one in my closet as well, and I like them. Now Toff's asking for a hat. He wants hats. So hopefully we can get to a point where we've got some different swag to give away. But for right now, I think we're going to start with T-shirts. Now, another order of business here is YouTube comments. Now, I have to I have to apologize to everybody on YouTube who's left us comments, and I didn't know they were there. Apparently, we've had several, and everything from a few days ago to a few months ago. So I went out and approved them all over the weekend. Tried to respond to as many of them as possible. I even sent some direct messages to people to let them know that we weren't ignoring them, and I apologize. But if you're leaving comments for us on YouTube, just know that I am now paying attention to that, and you will get a response one way or another. But yeah, thanks for leaving those comments. In addition to that, Corona Geek is now on iTunes. Basically, we're taking the Hangout, which is recorded as a video podcast, converting it to an audio podcast, and then publishing it out onto iTunes. So that's really exciting because the iTunes marketplace, there's a lot of traffic there and a lot of attention. So we're trying to garner some attention for the Corona SDK any way that we can, and so we're hoping that iTunes will help us do that. So if you like using iTunes for your podcast, please go over there and subscribe, rate, and leave a comment. If you like the show, help us out by leaving your feedback. Also, we're on Stitcher, which I don't know. Do any of you guys use Stitcher at all?
Yep.
Yeah, that's that quilting service.
We are. You can put our logo on your quilts. Now, Stitcher's a mobile app that allows you to stream podcasts to your mobile device without having to manage files. So instead of having to download them and maybe move them or organize them or do whatever, all you have to do is punch the button, listen to the show. If you like it, you add it to your list of stations or list of shows that you listen to, and you're good to go. It will stream that to you, which is great. So you can get it pretty much anywhere. Or if you are on a Wi-Fi connection, you can tell it to do offline browsing or offline listening, so that it'll basically pull it to your device, and then you can listen to it without a data connection, which is good if you're trying to save on your data plan. But Stitcher's it's basically the replacement for all the podcast directories out there. A few years back they were big, and now they've kind of all fallen by the wayside. But Stitcher is a great app for listening to podcasts. So anyway, we've got a partnership with them. We're on their platform, and so if you like the Stitcher app, please subscribe, and again, rate, follow, share, leave feedback. It all helps the show. Then the other bit of news here is that over the weekend we created a Corona extension. So there is a blog post out there, which is what Chris is showing us right now. There's a blog post out there for that all of this, where you can get the links, and we'll also put this in the show notes. But basically, we created a Corona extension that is a quick reference guide for the Corona SDK. Basically, you install it into Chrome. When you click on the Corona Geek head, it pops up with a menu item that allows you to gives you a list of all the Corona SDK API stuff, and you can click on that, and it'll take you directly into the documentation on the Corona website. So that's a nice little piece. We're going to add some features to that as we go along, but for today, it's just just a quick reference to help speed things along during your development.
Hey, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
I did download it, and it's a very cool tool for people who use Chrome, which I don't. Are you going to do a Safari version?
Well, that's always the issue with these types of things is multiple browsers, multiple extensions or whatever, and things to support. So I don't know. I hadn't considered it at the moment. I was just trying to get it up there on Chrome. I use Chrome all the time. I would definitely like to put it into one of those, one of the different browsers, but we'll just have to see. So you say Safari. What about Firefox?
Firefox. I'm a Safari snob. I find Firefox clunky, and I don't like clunky. That's why I use a Mac. And sorry, all you Windows people out there. So Safari would be a good second, I think. Firefox obviously would be too. But I'm just pretty much thinking from a selfish standpoint. So Safari is kind of what I'm wishing for.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll have to take that into consideration and take a look at it. I know that with the Chrome extension, there was, they had some sample code and things how to do that, and it seemed pretty straightforward. So it was the easiest thing to get started with. But yeah, we'll put that on the list. Take a look at it. Brian, you can do that, right?
And I've got to say the Chrome extension has been really nice. I've already been using it. So since you put it up there, being able to just click on the Corona Geek head, and I've got all the APIs listed without having to log into the Corona Labs website. That's a really nice feature.
Cool. Good. I'm glad to hear it. That's really the intention. We want to add a custom search feature to it, where eventually you'll be able to do a search, and it'll search across a bunch of different Corona SDK resources. But for today, we just kind of wanted to start simple and get it out there. But yeah, it's amazing what the Chrome web store does in order to help you publish your extensions. It was really cool. Made me kind of wonder what I could accomplish with mobile apps and extensions, combined together. That might be a cool little experiment. But anyway, so that's out there, and so I've got links to that on the site, and we'll put those links to that in the show notes as well. All right, so let's move on to the latest build release notes. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're on the verge of a public release, are we not?
Yes, we are. And if you go through and look at what's happening, these are just all getting all the minor bugs that are still left in the daily builds taken care of before that public release. We're seeing a lot of Android bugs being fixed, audio, media, things like that. Just that it's getting really close to that next big public release.
Yeah, so for anybody who hasn't listened to the previous shows, I think we talked about this before, where Corona Labs has kind of stopped any major feature additions to the SDK, and then they're just really kind of squashing bugs in advance of the public release, so they can get this thing out there for everybody. And what that really means to you, if you're not already a paid developer, is that a lot of the additions that have happened since the last public release was put out will be available to you as well. So a lot of the enhancements to widgets, a lot of the things that have happened with the iPhone 5, all that stuff like that will be available.
I wanted to call attention to the fact that you really need to submit a bug when you find one, because most of what you're seeing with the daily builds right now, they're referencing case numbers, which came directly from bug submissions. So, I mean, here's the bug submission page right here. Walk through it, and it's not a whole lot to it. Just tell us what it is and that kind of thing, and give us an example, that type of stuff, and then you give it to Corona Labs, and they go take a look and see what they can do. And whenever you wander over to the daily builds and you look at what are they solving right now, just give an example. That doesn't have one. Let me go back to one. It had a whole listing of here are the case numbers. Oh, where was it? They had like 3 that
go to 971. That had one.
That had one?
Yeah, the most recent.
There we go.
Yeah,
so I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, this is telling you. Oops, sorry, went too far. This is telling you what somebody submitted, turned into a case, and they're fixing it. So if you find a bug, don't expect it just to go away. You actually need to tell somebody and say, hey, there's a bug. And they walk through it. I mean, that was kind of my big thing, is when you start looking through the daily builds and you see the fact that they're referencing case numbers and here's this and here's what we found, and they walk through it all.
Yeah, so it's all there on the Corona Labs website under their basically under their build notes. It references all the all the bug reports and things like that. So there's not a reason why, there's no reason not to. So it definitely helps improve the Corona SDK. So that's the biggest thing on the latest with the build notes right now. We'll put a link to everything so that you can go read the summary for yourself. But just know that it's coming up. Where they're going to have a new public release, and they're hard at work, squashing those bugs, and then I'm sure that we're going to see a bunch of new features come out once they kind of get past that.
Yeah, I think the new public release is actually available right now, because if you go to the regular download thing, it says build 971.
Oh, good. Oh, excellent. Yeah, which is the current build, right?
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's,
Yes.
Okay, well, great. All right, well, let's move on to the blog highlights. So one of the things that's I guess the big buzz going on right now is that Corona Labs just got $2 million worth of funding. Is that correct?
2 million?
Yeah, this is really exciting. This is that they've done another Series A of venture capital funding, and I'm no venture capital expert or anything like that, but Corona is a lean organization. I mean, they did the first funding of $1 million. What I think the article said 2008 or 2009, and they've been profitable ever since. And now they've got another $2 million, and they're planning on doubling the size of their engineering staff so that they can even develop more cool things faster. So this is really exciting. I'm very happy about the additional funding and what we're going to see Walter and his crew accomplish with that.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying again. This funding isn't necessarily for operations like keep things going. I mean, they're profitable. Already.
Yeah, this isn't buying the T-shirts.
I mean, this is expanding the staff, hiring additional engineers so that they can expand and work on the things that they want to. That way, they have more bandwidth to pump out the features that everybody's knows and loves. So yeah, I think that's very exciting that they're going to be growing even more and getting even more stuff done. I can't wait to see what they do. I mean, if they can do that with a small crew, I can only imagine what they'll have when they have more people in the mix.
I completely agree. I'm really excited to see what's coming in the next 6 months for Corona. And if you go to their hiring page, you can see where they're expanding in the direction that they're going. So I think we can expect to see some really exciting things, especially come early 2013, assuming we all survive the Mayan 20.
Well, I know I've got my Twinkies and ding dongs and bottled water all stored up, and I'm good.
You're safe. All right.
I'm good. Great. I may die of diabetes and but I'll be
that's a long-term bit. Though.
I'll be preserved though. All right. Is that any more other blog highlights that we need to cover?
No, I think that'll work.
Okay.
That's the big one.
Yeah. Okay.
He's a biggie.
All right. Well, Jay, let's get into the Corona Project Manager. Tell us all about that. Is there? First of all, tell us what it is for those who don't know.
Okay, Corona Project Manager is an IDE. Although some people say it's more of just a project manager because it doesn't have this or doesn't have that. It's an IDE. It came out. I got into Corona in late 2010, so I'm just celebrating my 2-year anniversary with Corona. And when I first came out, everybody was saying, how come you don't have an IDE? How come you don't have an IDE? I started playing around with it and thought, yeah, something needs to happen here. And the first version of Corona Project Manager wasn't an IDE. It was just a project manager. It was just a way to take all of your assets and keep them in one place and very quickly switch from one to the other, and do a thing with what I call dynamic assets, which allows you to just check a little box and include or exclude different files. So it makes it really easy to try things out, to do a what if kind of scenario. So you can swap in graphics, you can swap in different sounds without actually going and dragging files around on your hard drive. So that was the first version. And the main reason I didn't have an editor in the first version was because I didn't know how to write an editor. Writing an editor is hard. That's kind of a real specialized kind of thing.
I would think that's an understatement.
Yeah, and honestly, I still don't know how to write an editor, but I found a control that was available, and it was a code editor that was available, so I plugged it in and thought, okay, I'll offer a rudimentary editor. And since then, I've built onto it, and and it's pretty good. So Corona Project Manager is just a way to manage all of your Corona projects, basically.
Now, it does things like correct me if I'm wrong on how I'm phrasing this, but basically it does things like asset sharing. Is that right, across projects?
Yeah, and that was one of the other cool things about it is when I started playing around, and you'd have a little chunk of code, a little library of code, like UI.lua or something like that, and I would create a new project. Then you have to drag all these things into your new project, and I thought, this is stupid. It's on my hard drive. I shouldn't have to do that. And so Corona Project Manager allows you to take a file that's in one project and drag it into a different project and drop it in there. And the second project knows that it's there, but it actually lives in just one place on your hard drive. So you don't have multiple copies of your libraries floating around, which is really nice when you get ready to update something. I was just updating, I got a library called Button Code that I use to make buttons in my projects. And I found a bug in it, and I fixed it in one spot, and the bug was then fixed in every project that uses that library. So yeah, that's one of the time savers that the Corona Project Manager has in it. It allows you to share the assets across any number of different projects.
Great! Wow, that's, to me, that's one of the biggest features that I like about the tool. I mean, obviously we could sit here and list all the features and things like that, but to me, that's the one that just kind of yells out at me that time saver, space saver, everything all in one.
Yeah, and that's the time saver thing is what I'm mainly concerned with. Partly because I hate monkey work. I hate doing the same thing over and over, and updating multiple files on my hard drive, that would fit into that category. So the stuff that I'm adding to Corona Project Manager are things that will save time, cut down on your workflow, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So tell me what is Outlaw?
Outlaw is actually probably the next version of Corona Project Manager. I'm getting ready to do a CPM update, but it probably won't be called Corona Project Manager. It'll probably just be called Outlaw. I'm going to go ahead and switch. And part of the reasoning for that is because Corona Project Manager, in fact, the current version of it, if you go into preferences, you can actually set the framework that you're using on a project-by-project basis. So if you're using Corona SDK, that's cool. And if you're using Moai SDK, you can set it for that also. So Outlaw kind of was kind of a pun, really. It's like, instead of just being Corona, it's being an outlaw, and it's allowing Moai SDK development at the same time. And I have plans. Outlaw is kind of a stepping stone between Corona Project Manager and a project called Renegade. And Renegade is going to be the IDE that I want. I think that even Corona Project Manager and all of the other IDEs like that, while they're nice, they're coming at you from a coding standpoint. And I'm a coder. I've been programming for 25 years, but I don't want to have to code everything. The whole drag and drop thing is nice, but at the same time, if you go too far that way, like a game salad type thing, I'm naming names, that's too restrictive. And I think there's a good middle ground there, and so that's what I'm shooting for with Renegade. Outlaws is going to be a step in that direction, and I guess I have some really cool plans that if they work in practice the way they work in my head, it's going to be awesome. So we'll see if that actually pans out.
I sense a running pattern theme in the naming system. Going from Project Manager to Outlaw to Renegade. Is this like Desperado is third? What?
Yeah. Just I got to write that down.
So then are they going to be separate products, or are they going to be are these just code names that you're given to the different phases?
No, Outlaw is Outlaw and CPM are the same product. The same product. I'm just basically changing the name, and part of that's a branding thing. I have nothing against Corona Labs. Corona Labs has been very, very good to me. I love Corona Labs, but at the same time, Corona Project Manager has their name in it, not my name. So I'm looking at it's a marketing thing. It is all it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I like the name.
Yeah.
So
I've seen other tools, whether they be IDEs or level editors or whatevers that are doing the same thing. Yeah, they are reaching out across a broader, the broader mobile market, and separating themselves from, for branding purposes, separating themselves by using a different name. Just whether it be legal purposes or branding purposes or whatever. It's just one of those things where you want to have your own label.
Yeah, and I do have permission to use the Corona name in my product, and that's been really cool. But especially if I'm wanting to market this to Moai SDK users, marketing a Corona Project Manager to the Moai crowd doesn't really fit all that well.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense too. Well, from a business standpoint, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but this is how I see things. If you can have, it's better to have a handful of customers than it is to have one customer. Because if if that one customer goes away for whatever reason, you stop developing for it or whatever, then you've got a bunch of other customers that can fill that space. So that seems like a smart business practice. So tell me about mastering Corona then. You've got the tools, but you've also got a kind of a course going on. What is that about?
Yeah, you know what? I've been doing tutorial videos since before there was video, as a matter of fact. Maybe not that early, but for years and years, I've been doing a lot of tutorial video stuff, and I've always had people say, even when I'd create a product, and then I would create a series of videos on how to use that product, and I would have people complimenting me on it. It's so nice to be able to see that, and you can just watch it and see how to use your product and everything. And I've been thinking for a long time, I need to get more into just the tutorial type thing, and I've done a little bit of that, and I just decided to kind of dive into it. And the first course that I put out for Corona was business apps using Corona SDK, because I have probably more ideas for business type apps in my head than I do actual games, and I love Corona SDK, but it always has frustrated me that it was so easy to make a game and just as hard to make a business type app. And with the widgets and things like that they've come up with in the recent past, that's changed a lot. And I would always see people like on the forums or on Twitter and stuff talk about switching to something else away from Corona in order to do a business app. And I thought, you don't have to do that. And so I decided, I thought, there's a lot of people out there who they've got the Lua skills, they've got the Corona SDK skills. It's a shame to toss that away, start from scratch with something else just so you can make a business app. So that was the reason for doing the business apps using Corona SDK. And the second half of that was I wanted to do my own app, and so I thought, okay, this is going to be a good way. I'll do them kind of both at the same time. I'll build the app, discover all of the pitfalls and everything like that, and how to do the stuff, and then put it into video. And it's been really well received. And I had a lot of people asking me about doing a game course, and so I decided to do that too. And I had kind of planned on doing that, but it started a little sooner than otherwise. And so I'm doing the business apps video course is really aimed at kind of an intermediate type crowd. You already need to have done some programming at least in Corona SDK before diving into this. Beginning mobile game development, though, is the second course, and it's about 1/3 done right now, and it's really aimed at beginners. In fact, I actually have a 5-video set of kind of a Lua boot camp that even walks you through the beginnings of learning Lua. and beginning mobile game development should be done within the next month. The doors are actually open right now. I've got a cut rate price on it because people get in cheap, but they know that they have to wait a few days between each lesson as it's uploaded. So, and I actually have I've got about 4 or 5 video courses that I'm planning coming up. I'll have the business course, I'll have the game course, and then there's probably going to be another intermediate game course. But one of the things I'm planning on doing is basically taking things like in-app purchase, which can be a real headache, and just doing a course just on in-app purchase and just kind of segmenting those kind of things, all the hard stuff.
So very good. So do you work through sample apps, or I mean, what's the format of the material?
Yeah, typically what I do is I have an app that I create ahead of time, and then I go back through during the course and actually show how to build that app. The one that I'm doing for the game course right now is called Froggy Went to Hoppin', and I'm using free artwork from Vicky Wenderlich, and it's at vickywenderlich.com. Do you have show notes that we can put a link to that in?
Yes.
Okay, and she offers her husband has a site that is big in the Cocos 2D world, and lots of tutorials and things like that. And she offers game artwork for free. You just mention her in your credits and things like that. And so I took that artwork, and it's frogs and lily pads and flies and snakes and things like that. And we're actually in this game course working through that and showing how to build the entire app. By the time that the course is completely uploaded, the original Froggy Went to Hoppin' game will actually be in the App Store, ready for people to download and just kind of use it as a sample app.
Very cool. Yeah, it's nice to have an end product when you go through something like that. That way, it's not just kind of theoretical. It's actually you produce something at the end. Right.
And I did that with the business apps course. If you go to the App Store right now and do a search on Alaska Leads, you'll see the app that I actually use, and I pulled big chunks of that out and use that for the business app course. And actually, that Alaska Leads app, when you take the business app course, I actually give you the entire source code for that complete app. And it's going to be the same for the game app, that besides the videos and all the sample code, you'll actually get the final complete source code for the game as it was submitted to the App Store.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I have that. I downloaded that app. I'm not necessarily interested in Alaska Leads, but
it's a little tiny niche. Very small.
But I did download it just to see what you were up to, and see what was going on, see how the app worked, things like that. Because I know you mentioned that it was part of the course I think on the website you mentioned that. So
yeah.
Well, very cool. Yeah, that's a great thing. I think that the things that you and Brian, you've got your book out there. You've got several books out there. These types of resources are critical, I think, to people being able to get up and running on Corona. I mean, you can go to the documentation, you can go through that. The community is strong in the forums, and there's lots of tutorials and things online. But it's people learn in a variety of different ways. Some people like video instruction, some people don't. Some people like to read, some people like pictures. It just depends. And I'm a video learner personally.
Yeah, I'm kind of a book and video learner, and the thing is that when you're trying to learn something like Corona, it's kind of like the more resources you have, the better. It's like you've got free YouTube videos, you've got paid for videos, you've got free documentation, you've got paid documentation, and it's just kind of like whatever you can get your hands on when you're trying to learn something, the more the merrier.
Yeah, I know that getting snippets of things like a lot of the YouTube videos and things like that are great, but sometimes you want to see how somebody puts together an app. I like to look at how developers approach problems, in different ways, because if there was just one way of doing it, there'd only be one book on it, and that's all we'd ever that's all we'd ever buy. But it's more, it's as much an art as it is a science, and I like to see how somebody approaches something, because there's times when I see efficiencies in code that I may have not picked up on before, seeing somebody else's style. So that's cool. Well, you mentioned something just a moment ago that I think is common to a lot of people, and that's graphics. Where do you get graphics and stuff like that? So I want to talk here real quick about some of the community questions that we have, and one of them was from one of the YouTube users who I left their comments in moderation for forever, but I'm going to say this, I'm probably going to say it wrong, but Rika888 says, I'd like to learn how to make basic graphics for simple apps, and also learn where to find some good graphic contractors in Corona. Also how to make a soundboard and hire music artists for soundtrack games. That would be cool to watch. So I think we need to cover this on some of our upcoming shows, but Jay, what are your recommendations there? I mean, for game development and stuff like that. Where do you recommend people find assets for things?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I'm always on the lookout for new stuff. Like I mentioned, Vicky Wenderlich's site has a lot of cool stuff. It's kind of a specific style, but I go there. And I check her site probably about once a week or so, just to look for new stuff that's up there. There's a site called, what is it, Graphic Buffet? Do we know about that one?
Graphic Buffet. Graphic Buffet. That sounds interesting.
It's graphic-buffet.com. And buffet, of course, spelled as Buffett. And this guy, I think the guy behind it has. I'm assuming it's a guy, has hung out on the Corona forums before, and I think that's how I found it. And he's got a lot of artwork there, and a lot of it is pretty cheaply priced. The other thing is for my my game Horse Crazy, which is the most reviled horse app ever created. Although actually, I think I'm up to 3 stars now, but I have more 1-star reviews on it than 5 stars reviews. It's a long story, but it's a very good looking app. For that one, I got great artwork. I teamed up with an artist, and Dwayne and I kind of went in on this thing, and he did the artwork and I did the coding, and it worked out really good that way. So if you can find an artist who is more interested in drawing than coding, then teaming up with somebody like that is a really good way to get good artwork, and not use placeholder artwork and things like that.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll have to go check that out. That's very interesting. I like that when looking at the site there, it has a lot of game assets and things. It's geared towards that, as opposed to just a general graphics website, where you can download stock photography and stuff like that.
Right. Graphic-buffet.com is just good for game stuff, and just game stuff.
Okay, cool. Well, let's move on here a little bit to our app review, so we don't run out of time. But so this weekend I left the house, did a little bit of a family outing, and realized at some point that I had completely left my wallet at home. Driver's license, credit cards, everything. Now, I left my wallet, but I somehow didn't leave my phone. My phone is, I've said it before, the phone is the last thing that I touch at night and the first thing that I touch in the morning. It's in my pocket all the time, and I really don't understand people who have a phone but don't carry it with them 24/7. It's just me. It's a communicator. It's my link to the outside world, and if I don't have it, I might as well just be naked, which is not anything that anybody wants to see. So it got me to thinking, why not have an app that would have my credit cards and my driver's license in it on the phone? And I know that freaked some people out. They, that they've just passed out. I've said that, and they're flat out on the floor with the idea of doing that. But all my other personal information is in my phone. There's lots of different ways that you can secure your phone. And if I'd had something like this, I would have had my driver's license with me, and I'd had all my credit cards with me. So I went to looking, and I found Lemon Wallet at lemon.com, which I don't know how much they had to pay to get lemon.com. That seems like a pretty premium domain. But it looks fairly interesting. I mean, you take a picture of your cards, and then it brings everything into the app and gives you like a scannable barcode, not a barcode, but like a QR code, and puts everything there, and it'll even track like your expenses and stuff like that as you make purchases. It'll give you some reporting on what your purchases have been, things like that. Now I use the Starbucks app all the time now. It's linked to my credit card and will recharge itself whenever refill itself every time that I reach a certain dollar figure. What do you guys think? Would you do something like this? Would you carry your credit card and your driver's license around in your phone?
I've actually already got a separate credit card just for online use, where I literally called them up and said, no, I'd like to set the limit at, well, I originally started at $200, but then I started buying more, so I had to up the limit. But pretty much every year when they decide, oh, you've been such a good customer, we're going to upgrade you to $1,000, I have to call them back up and go, no, put me back down at $400. So I have a credit card that is automatically limited so that the most somebody could take me for is the $400. Well, that would be perfect for this, because if you lose your wallet or you don't have your wallet and you have your phone, well, at least you have something. You're not just totally wandering around and can't even buy a Coke or something. I mean, just the whole idea is that I need food. I got a credit card right here.
Yeah. Now I don't know how this works in practical application though, because if you try to give your driver's license to the highway patrol.
That would be tough.
On your iPhone, I don't know if what kind of, you get some dirty looks. I don't know. He might ask you to step out of the car.
Yeah, I think in that case you're still getting the ticket.
Yeah, exactly. You're probably still getting the ticket, but at least I don't know. Maybe he would cut you some slack. But I just thought that was a pretty interesting concept. I think we're moving away from. I have been moving away from paper money for the longest time. I have a very thin metal case, like a old style cigarette case. I carry my driver's license and my credit cards in, and it doesn't handle nickels and quarters and dimes very well. So I don't carry really paper money anymore. My kids are the only people who get paper money in our house, just for allowances and things like that. So I don't know.
I'm thinking backup.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I normally carry my wallet with me, but in this case, it would have been good. It would have been good to have this. So at this point, I'm pretty much I'd have to live at Starbucks.
There you go.
If I got stranded, I'd have to live on scones and lattes. But okay, cool. If you guys come across any kind of apps like that you think are interesting, please let me know. Or if you're listening, out there, go send those to questions@coronageek.com. And give us your app suggestions on that kind of stuff. The other app that I want to talk about just briefly is because this is basically Thanksgiving week in the U.S. We're coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday, and there's an app that's just been released out there that's called Thanksgiving Freedom. It's an 8-bit side-scroller game that is right in that genre of pixelated images and 8-bit audio, and it's a lot of fun. It's something that you would probably give to the kids, to play on the way to Grandma's house, and it's in the Apple App Store for 99 cents. I downloaded it, played with it, and I even created a video review, which we'll put in the show notes as well. But it's fun. It's put out by Scroll down a little bit there, Toff. It's Peter Sanford. He said this is his first Corona app to publish to the App Store, and he was pretty excited about it. So it's a nice app. I like the graphics; they're fun. It's a little bit challenging at times, just because I'm not very good at side scrollers. My kids would probably love it, be really good at it, but it's cute, and I like it. So that's our holiday app, our Thanksgiving app for the week. Go check that out.
Cool.
Very nice.
Now, so moving on to the device news, industry news, just some notes for people who are using OpenFaint, or who were using OpenFaint. Now it's called GREE or something. Is that what we're calling it? GREE platform. Basically, they're going to completely discontinue the OpenFaint service on December 14th. So what is today?
You have less than 1 month.
So yeah, you've got less than a month, to convert. They've got some.
Here's your box. You're out of the building in 30 days. Thank you very much.
It's pretty much. I mean, but it's been coming for a long time. I mean, it's no.
Yeah, they have
surprise.
made other announcements. This is just the time to get changed, or you're going to be left out.
That's really it. This is the attention shoppers. We close in 15 minutes. Get out. So, but anyway, we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, so you can go check that out. They say that you can make the conversion in, I think they said like a week, maybe a couple weeks. So you've got plenty of time to do it if you haven't done it already.
104 million.
What's that? Users?
Wow. No, that's how much they paid.
Oh, to buy them.
GREE bought Open.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, basically, you're talking about across.
Jay, we're in the wrong business.
Yeah, it's like what can I make that somebody's going to give me 104 million for? Because I'll make it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You'll have it by December 14th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just an alternative to Game Center. So it's a pretty big marketplace. I think they're banking on Android as well. So.
Okay, so but we don't have GREE, right, in Corona? I mean,
no.
So what do we do?
We had OpenFint, yeah.
But we can't switch to GREE, right?
That's a very good question. I don't use that. So
That is a great question.
I would assume that you would. I mean, let's go look. Now we gotta look.
Yeah, we gotta.
Let's see here. Yeah, I would assume that you would be able to, because I just would assume. That's because I'm clueless like that.
When we assume,
we make animals out of you and me. Yeah, I don't know. Chris, look that up and see what.
I'll type. I'm typing. I swear.
Okay. And so, while he looks that up, let's talk about the API Spotlight real quick. Brian, last time, when last we left our heroes.
last time I gave a 30,000-foot view of pulling information from a MySQL database on a remote server through a PHP file, converting it to JSON data format, and then pulling it into a MySQL file, saving it as SQLite, and then being able to read that SQLite file. Well, I finished the tutorial. It's finished. It's up there. I put it on YouTube, put it on my site, give all the code examples of how to do it all, and created the best movies, in my opinion, in the world, which includes Fiddler on the Roof, Princess Bride, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yeah, I'm a little eclectic in my movie taste. So it all works through a PHP file, converting everything to JSON format, and pulls it all into a nice, simple data file that can be stored on your remote system or on your client, like your iPhone or your iPad. This is a perfect example of how to go about if you've got data that changes inside your app. this is an excellent way to handle data change in your app without having to republish your app every few months and having to go through the whole Apple approval process and everything. Okay. So
and
it's out there. It's ready for use.
And you
have fun with it.
You publish that on Burton's Media Group?
That's on Burton's Media Group /blog. It's also on my YouTube channel, Dr. Brian Burton. And we've also got a link to it, I think, on our Corona Geek site.
Yep, yes, we'll definitely put it in today's show notes, and I know I've tweeted it and Facebooked it and plussed it, so be sure to look for that. I like that you provided all the code and the video walkthrough as well, because sometimes people get stuck or don't quite understand how something works, and you've covered that for them.
Now this is something that my students have been asking for far too long, and I've just been not diligent about getting that video made. I also had several people request this video from my YouTube channel. So it's that's the reason why I created it. It was something that was requested, and now it's out there and ready for use. So have fun with it.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I'm going to have to work through that. I didn't get a chance to do that this weekend, but I want to work through it because I went out and did Rob Miracle's example of JSON, basically pulling from a remote data source and getting it into your app. But then I wanted to go through and marry that up into a database and store it and be able to retrieve it later on. So this is exactly what you've done for us. So I want to work through that.
Yeah, and this on the client side, this is really, really simple. I think the whole program's less than 30 lines of code. So it's really straightforward, simple. Corona, this week I was messing around with some other mobile platforms. And Corona has us spoiled. It really does make life so much easier for all of our development needs. You play around with any of the others out there. What we're doing in 1 or 2 or 3 lines of code requires 20 or 30 or more. One of my students said that they were messing around with Mox 2D, trying to pull it into an Android application. And they spent over 200 lines of code just to get the physics integrated, get gravity turned on, and get an item on there affected by gravity. We can do that with 5 lines. So it really does spoil us.
Yeah.
And this is an unpaid announcement. Corona has not given me anything to say that. So.
Full disclosure.
So if they want to send a check at any time, I'm happy to receive.
Yeah, or at least a T-shirt, right? Yeah.
A hat. We're going for hats now.
We're going for hats. I know Walter talks about that on the blog in a recent blog post that he did. He talked about the fact that there's all this stuff that goes on behind the scenes in order to make this stuff happen. So and it's not just the 1 line of code or the 10 lines of code. It's the fact that there's different Android platform, devices, and that just because a Kindle Fire or the Nook is considered a quote unquote Android device, they still have different ways of handling things. They still have different implementations of things. They still have and so for us as Corona developers, we come to the table with one set of tools. And then we're able to leverage that across all these without having to worry about all those different variations. And I think that's just extremely awesome. And I wish there was a better way to relate that so that people could understand the value. I think it's one of those, like you've said, if you've ever developed the stuff by hand, straight up.
Yeah. If you've ever done native or one of the competitors for Corona that are out there. Not to say that they're not good products. There's some excellent products out there. It's just they don't make it as seamless and simple as what Corona does.
Yeah, very well said.
And like Jay was saying earlier, quite often the business apps get sidelined for some reason. When Corona first came out, it was primarily making business apps. The games came later. It's incredibly simple to make games, but it's also incredibly simple to make business apps. And, all my app development I'm doing in Corona.
Yeah, when I first got into Corona, they actually had Corona SDK and they had Corona SDK Game Edition. you know, and you had
Yes.
you chose which one. And I think the main difference was Box 2D was in one and wasn't in the other or something. And then right after I got into it, they kind of merged the two, and it was just one thing. And I think the thing about focusing on the games is I don't know, games are sexier. You know, it's just cooler and stuff like that. I think from a hobbyist standpoint, as far as trying to get the hobbyist market, you're going to be wanting to shoot for, you know, people do games as a hobby. They don't write biz apps. You know, it's just a hobby.
Yeah, it's the professional developer that's doing the biz apps, because you ask any business or professional developer, that's where you make the majority of your money. Yeah. The game apps, the business apps pay for the game app development.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also extremely hard to get your kids to beta test biz apps.
That's right.
All right. Well, okay. We'll definitely check that out. We'll put that in the show notes so you can go check out Brian's data. I'm calling it the data tutorial, but it's much more than that. So we'll put a link to that so you can go check that out. So I think that's it. I think that's all we have for today now. We've got a few more announcements here just to kind of close things out. Basically, next week we're going to be interviewing Eric Dick from Tap for Tap. He's going to come in and talk with us about the Tap for Tap exchange network. Basically, they are doing app discovery, app promotion, cross promotion through their network, and they've also got some things going on with some revenue sharing and things like that. We're going to bring him in and talk with him and discuss those issues, because I know monetization, you know, revenue streams, things like that. Those are important to developers as well as the code itself. So we're going to be bringing those in, you know, experts in to talk about those types of things as well in some of the upcoming shows. So Jay, thank you for being on the show with us. So tell if you want to send somebody to a website, which website should they go to?
Right now, they should probably go to Corona Project Manager. Although OutlawGameTools.com is where most things are going to start happening. Right now, there's kind of a placeholder for the Outlaw IDE, and there's a sign up there for when it's released to be notified of that. And I'm thinking that probably within the next week or two, there's going to be another announcement for another new product that just kind of sprang out of nowhere. Kind of, you'll see when it's announced, and that'll be on Outlaw Game Tools also.
Okay, good, great. So OutlawGameTools.com and CoronaProjectManager.com. So go check those out if you haven't already. Well, very good. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for being with us. So for everybody who's listening, remember, we're on Stitcher now. We're on iTunes, so you can find us on coronageek.com/iTunes, or you can find us at coronageek.com/Stitcher, or /Google, not /Google+, but Facebook /CoronaGeek, YouTube, Twitter, you name it. We're out there. So pick your poison and follow us, and send us your feedback. Let us know what you want to hear about, what you want us to talk about, who you'd like us to interview. If you have an app that you would like us to review, send that to us as well. The Thanksgiving Freedom was actually something that Peter sent to me from through Twitter. And so we went out and did a review of that and included it in today's show. So if you're looking to get the word out about your app, or you'd like to be on the show, let us know. And I think that's all we have for this week. Thanks for being here, guys, and we'll see you next week.